The LA Kings look to stay perfect on the road, fresh off a dominant win over the Blues. We discuss that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We would love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are also on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I did see that we recently went over the 2,400 mark for subscribers. So thank you guys so much for all of the subscribers that are checking out this channel. Really appreciate that. All the subscriptions, the likes, all that stuff really helps the show to get noticed more. So thank you so much. And good to reach another milestone of sorts, 2,400 subscribers and counting here on Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show. It's been putting out content for the last 17 years. And, of course, a passionate LA Kings fan for 30 years. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Hope you had a great weekend. We have a jam-packed show for you today. We have a game recap. We have a game preview. Lots to talk about. We got a rain report we'll give you as well. But we start with the Kings taking on the St. Louis Blues this past Saturday night at Crypto.com Arena, fresh off a nice home win over the Florida Panthers 2 nights before, and a couple of lineup notes for that game against the Blues. First and foremost, Pierre-Luc Dubois did play in this game. Great to see PLD out there on the ice after that scary collision he had with the goalpost in the game against Florida. There was some concern. I thought he'd probably sit out at least one game just to be on the cautious side, but great to see he was out there in warm-up and played the entire game and played a very effective game as well, showed no signs of that injury whatsoever. Also, Jared Anderson-Dolan was back out of the lineup. Alex Laferriere, after the one game off, back into the lineup playing on the Dubois line in that game against the St. Louis Blues, and Cam Talbot back in net again. If you missed it, a quick recap of the game on Saturday against St. Louis, and we've talked about the importance of the Kings getting off to good starts and getting the first goal of the game, especially on home ice where they've struggled a bit. Well, LA got off to a flying start in this one. 2 goals, 19 seconds apart in the first 3 minutes of the game. Quentin Byfield scoring his third of the season on the power play, a put back in front of the net after a couple of whacks at it to make it 1-0. And then Blake Lizotte added his 4th of the season after a turnover in the Blues end, scores on a shot and makes it 2-0 very quickly for the LA Kings. Later in that opening period, more Kings. Adrian Kempe shorthanded, making a great play to pass the puck off the boards to himself, winning a race for a puck at the blue line, takes off using his great speed, gets a breakaway, and puts it home with a beautiful finish to make it 3-0 for the Kings. It was he was deserving of giving himself an assist on the goal that he scored. That was a beautiful play to himself off the boards. And then Pierre Dubois, again showing no effects of the injury, closed out the scoring. A beautiful give and go with Arthur Kaliyev, and the Kings had a commanding 4-0 lead after one period. Second period, no goals scored until the final minute when Kevin Fiala, on Kevin Fiala mini bobblehead night, scored during the McFlurry minute to make everyone in attendance even happier to get that goal in the final minute of the period. Everyone got ice cream from McDonald's, and it was 5-0 Kings going into the third period. The only thing that was left to be determined was, could Cam Talbot get a shutout? Unfortunately not. The Blues would score with about 4 minutes to go to spoil that. But all in all, a great night to be a Kings fan. If you were out there at Crypto.com Arena, and we're going to talk about me meeting a bunch of fans later on, but great night, great first period. The Kings skate off with the convincing 5-1 victory to improve to 10-3-3 on the season. The only down note was Blake Lizotte did take a hard hit late in the game, left the ice, didn't return. We'll have an update on his status coming up in just a moment. Let's check out the game stats from that win over the St. Louis Blues. Again, 4-1 Kings get the victory. LA outshot the Blues barely, 31-30. But of course, after, and we'll talk more about it in a minute, after the dominant first period, the Kings did take their foot off the gas a little bit. As far as the power play goals and the special teams, Kings win the special teams battle again. The penalty kill continues to be great. The Blues had 3 power play opportunities, didn't score on any of them. And the Kings were 1 for 2 on the power play. Of course, LA scoring the shorthanded goal as well. So definitely winning the special teams battle against the Blues. As far as faceoffs go, the Blues did have the advantage 27-21. Block shots, the Kings with the advantage 22-15. And in the hit department, St. Louis had 21 to the Kings 14. I thought head coach Todd McClellan said it very well after the game when he said, quote, "I thought we played an outstanding first period. Everyone got involved. Special teams, power play, shorthanded, a lot of momentum created." He says, you get to that 4-0 lead. You still have 40 minutes left. I don't know if it's human nature or what, but we got a little bit sloppy. Didn't play to our standard after that, but we'll look at the good and take the win, end quote. And I thought that was a very accurate assessment of the game against St. Louis. I thought it was the best first period of the season for the LA Kings. But after that, I mean, it wasn't a great second and third period for the Kings, but it wasn't a bad second and third period either. I mean, when you look at how well they played in that first period, it would have been great to see him play 3 periods like that, but a little bit unrealistic. And I do think that as Todd McClellan said, it is human nature, right? Once you get a big lead, and you're pretty much assured that you're going to get the win, especially when it was 5-0 going into the third, it's hard not to think defense first. It's hard not to think sit on the lead. I thought, the game against Florida 2 games ago, in that third period, the Kings took it too far, right? They were almost playing like a glorified penalty kill when they were 5-on-5, just trying to get it out of the zone, really weren't thinking about any kind of offensive pressure. I don't think that was the case against St. Louis for the second and third periods, but certainly not as dominant as the opening period. I thought first period was outstanding. Second period and third period were okay. I don't think they were terrible, but I thought that they were not as good. And again, I thought Todd McClellan summed it up perfectly. Outstanding first period, not as good in the second and third, but good enough to get the job done. How about the 3 stars of the game for the LA Kings as chosen by me? I've mentioned this before. There are an official 3 stars that are announced by the team, but it is my show. I'm giving out my 3 stars of the game. And for our 3 stars against St. Louis, I'm going with Blake Lizotte as the number 3 star. Just a great hustle play for the second goal of the game. I thought it really, going up 1-0 early. Okay, team, that's great for the Kings, especially with what we talked about. But getting 2 goals like that in a quick span really puts another team on its heels. So great second goal of the game by Blake Lizotte. He has had a great year hustling all season long, making plays. There are times when Blake's size is an impediment for him, but the way he skates, his hustle, his heart and desire makes up for any physical, shortcomings that he has. I'm going to go with Cam Talbot as the number 2 star. I know it was a big lead, but he did make some pretty important saves in the second and third period. Thought he was on his game and continues to play outstanding. We'll talk more about his season coming up in a bit. 1 goal allowed, 30 saves for Cam Talbot. And the number 1 star, I'm going to go with Adrian Kempe with a goal and an assist. Beautiful shorthanded goal. And it's when you can score shorthanded, very demoralizing for the other team. And I love that it started with a great defensive play and a hustle play, and then finished with a great skill play. So Adrian Kempe really showing off all of his abilities on that shorthanded goal. He's not just a guy who has 40 goal potential, but a guy who kills penalties, a guy who takes pride in his defense, a guy who's not afraid to get his nose dirty and take on, players physically, not your typical kind of sniper who will float around, avoid contact, things like that. I think we take it for granted a little bit with Adrian Kempe about the way he loves to play defense and what he can do defensively. Certainly his offensive game is what makes him special. But again, I thought his defensive play in that game and his defensive play throughout his career is something he's improved more and more on, and obviously a threat shorthanded as well for the LA Kings. But a great goal. Adrian Kempe, my number 1 star against the St. Louis Blues. As far as what we liked and what we didn't like, we'll talk more about that in just a moment here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, drive, passion, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle at a level up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay is guaranteed fit only, available to U.S. customers. LA Kings face the Arizona Coyotes tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Remember, Arizona doesn't have the time change, so a little bit earlier than we're used to, but catch every moment of the hometown broadcast of your LA Kings on SiriusXM. Use the SXM app and search LA Kings. As far as what we liked and maybe didn't like from the game against Florida, obviously the start was exactly what we were looking for. I don't think I'm being a prisoner of the moment when I say that I thought that first period against St. Louis was the Kings' best period of hockey this season. The Kings did have a 4-goal period in Minnesota back on October 19th. It was a 4-goal first period as well, but the Kings also allowed 2 goals in that period against Minnesota and didn't have any special teams goals. Kings had a 3-goal second period in Winnipeg on October 17th and a 3-goal first period against Arizona on October 24th. But again, the way the Kings scored, the way they scored quickly to start the game, the way they had a power play and a shorthanded goal, I thought that was the Kings' best period of hockey this season. Obviously, great to see the Kings use their depth in getting scoring from all players on all 4 of their lines, getting a power play goal, getting a shorthanded goal, scoring from everywhere. Absolutely love to see that. It's been one of the strengths of the Kings this season. The puck movement and the passing against the Blues, especially in that opening period, was as good, if not better, than we've seen all year. The Kings were looking for teammates and making St. Louis cover every spot on the ice in their own zone. Very impressive. I know sometimes you can do that a little bit too much. Sometimes we want the Kings to have that shot first mentality, but when you can make those passing plays, it really, really puts another team on their heels and is fun to watch if you're a Kings fan. I thought the highlight of that was the give and go with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Arthur Kaliev in the St. Louis zone. Dubois backhands it to Kaliev, who immediately gives it right back to him on his stick, and he gets off the shot and scores. The goalie had to be moving quickly back and forth there. That's exactly what you want. That was a great play. And the Kings just did a great job of moving the puck and finding teammates in that opening period. It's almost like they were more interested in getting a primary assist than scoring a goal. And again, sometimes it's not what you want, but when it does work well and it's at a high level, it can be extremely effective. And we saw that for the Kings. I thought, unlike the Florida game, like I said, the Kings didn't go in too much of a defensive shell. They played it smart. They played defensive first in the second and third periods. And yes, they weren't as good offensively in the second and third. But again, I think it was a better mix than what we saw in that third period against Florida, where the Kings just went completely defensive, weren't thinking any offense whatsoever. It wasn't that bad. But I do like that the Kings were smart and protected the lead. I don't think they sat on it. I think they protected it. I think there's a difference. Obviously, we like Cam Talbot. He continues to impress. What did we not like? As Tom McClellan said, it wasn't a great 3 periods of hockey, but when you have one outstanding period, the best period so far, I think, for the Kings this year, and that's up for some debate, but I thought it was a great first period. It's understandable that the second and third periods weren't quite up to par. Do want to get more into Cam Talbot and what we've seen so far from him. He turned aside 30 of 31 shots against the Blues, now 9-3-1 on the season. He is tied for second in wins in the NHL. He is one behind Colorado's Alexander Georgiev, who's played one more game than Cam Talbot. Talbot lowered his goals against average to 2.02. That is 4th best in the NHL. But it should be pointed out, the 3 players that are above him in goals against have 5 or fewer starts than Cam Talbot does. So these are guys that are the clear number 2 goalie, or sharing time in net as like a 1A, 1B situation. Cam's the only one of these goalies that has clearly defined as the number 1 goalie. And same goes for his save percentage as well. He lowered his save percentage, or excuse me, raised his save percentage to .93 after that Blues game, 4th best in the NHL again and again. He's the only one of the top 4 that is clearly the number 1 goalie on his team. The other players, the other goalies aren't playing as much as him, as they are sharing time in net, or they're clearly the number 2 goalie. So of the number 1 goalies in the lead, of guys who are number 1 goalies in the lead, Cam Talbot has the best numbers right now of any goalie in the NHL. And I said before, when we acquired Cam Talbot, I thought he could be the goalie that he was 2 years ago in Minnesota, playing in front of a better team and being healthy. I will certainly admit I did not see this type of season from Cam Talbot so far. Obviously, we're not even to Thanksgiving yet, and there's still a ton of hockey to be played. But if you're going to talk about what we've seen so far, it is not, it is not hyperbole to say that Cam Talbot right now is a legitimate Vezina Trophy candidate. Now, it is really early, but we can only judge by what we've seen so far. We can't talk about the whole season yet, but it has been, I think, an incredible season so far for Cam Talbot. So keeping our fingers crossed, everything continues to go this way. But like I said, even I am surprised at how well Cam Talbot has played for the LA Kings. It has gone great so far. Now, Cam Talbot will not be in net tonight against Arizona. It's going to be Phoenix Copley. He lost his last start against the Penguins, although it wasn't his worst outing of the season. But again, that's not saying much. Last time the Kings faced the Coyotes, it was Phoenix Copley in net, and he allowed 3 goals on 6 shots and got pulled. Talbot came in, Kings rallied and got the victory. But big game for Cam Talbot in Phoenix tonight, and hopefully he'll be sharp. Hopefully the Kings will play well in front of him. The Kings so far 5-1 against Central Division opponents for the season, and 2-0 head-to-head against Arizona. This will be the 3rd and final meeting for the Kings against the Coyotes this season. As for Arizona, they are an improved team, kind of in the mix right now early on for a wild card spot in the West. They have a record of 8-7-2, definitely improved from past seasons. Last 10 games for Arizona, they have alternated wins and losses, and they are coming off a loss in Winnipeg to the Jets 5-2. So if they keep the trend going, they would get a win tonight, but we'll see. Arizona is 4-2 at home this season. Connor Ingram will be in net for the Coyotes. He's 6-1 this year, but he did, in his only start against LA, allow 3 goals on 6 shots. He got pulled against LA, and he ended up not being the goalie of record in that one. That was actually Kirill Velmelka who came in and allowed the 4th goal, which ended up being the game-winning goal. But the Kings will be looking to continue a couple of great trends, hopefully in this game tonight against Arizona. When the Kings score first, they are 8-0-1 on the season. Their only loss this season when scoring the first goal of the game was against the Vegas Golden Knights at home when they lost in a shootout. It was overtime. And then the Kings, of course, 7-0 on the road. They have not lost away from Crypto.com Arena so far this year, so looking to keep that going tonight. As for the Kings lineup into the game, there is going to be a change, unfortunately, and it is due to injury, unfortunately. Blake Lizotte will not be centering the 4th line for the Kings, where he has been so good, and that line has been so good this season. We mentioned it earlier. Lizotte took a hard hit late in that Blues game, left the ice, didn't return. Friend of the show and LA Kings insider Zach Dooley reporting that the injury is not expected to be long-term. They're looking at it as a day-to-day situation. At worst-case scenario, right now they're saying 7 to 10-day range if that timeline holds. And again, worst-case scenario, he would miss the next 3 games tonight against Arizona, Friday at Anaheim, and then Saturday against Montreal. But they're saying probably a day-to-day thing right now for Blake Lizotte. So again, the Kings avoiding a major injury once the season has started here so far to this date, and that obviously has been a big reason why the Kings have played so well this year. The continuity with the Lions being the same pretty much throughout. I will say I thought that the lineup change we saw with Kevin Fiala moving on to the no line and Arthur Kaliyev dropping down to the Dubois line has looked pretty good so far. But tonight, it will be Jarrett Anderson-Dolan centering that fourth line for the Kings, along with Carl Grundstrom and Trevor Lewis. So another opportunity for JAD to get in there. The reason he's on the Kings is because of his versatility, because he can play some center. And so he will get the call tonight. Hopefully he can keep that fourth line going as well. We are going to look at where the Kings are in the standings right now, give you a rain report as well. We'll do that here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, Adrian Kempe scores a hat trick and the LA Kings win the Stanley Cup. That sounds good, right? Well, you know what else sounds good? You win 100 times your money by playing daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app as the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can pick more or less based on goals, assists, points, saves, and more. And Sleeper offers 100 times payout, 100 times. And although we all love the NHL, it's not just about hockey. You've got the NFL in full swing, college football as well, and the NBA underway. Now is a great time to get in on all the amazing sports action. Make the right picks, and you could win big. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availabilities. All right, so where are the LA Kings in the standings here as we start a new week? Well, the Vegas Golden Knights are still on top of the Pacific Division, 13-4-2, the record for 28 points. The defending Stanley Cup champs are currently tied with Boston for the most points in the NHL, although Vegas is coming off their worst week of the season, where they went 1-2-1, lost to the Capitals, beat the Canadiens, lost to the Flyers in overtime, and then lost to the Penguins. Vancouver is still in second place. For them, they had a down week. Their record on the season is 12-5-1 for 25 points. This past week, though, 1-2. They beat the Islanders in overtime, lost to the Flames and the Kraken. Kings gaining some ground on both the Golden Knights and the Canucks with their 2-0 week this past week with the wins over the Panthers and Blues. LA checks in at 10-3-3 for 23 points, so 2 points behind Vancouver and 5 points behind Vegas. The Kings with 23 points on the season. Anaheim right now is in fourth place in the Pacific, 9-9 on the season, 18 points. This past week, they went 1-3. They beat the Predators, then lost to the Avalanche, Panthers, and Blues. Seattle is in fifth place in the Pacific, 7-8-4 for 18 points. This past week, they went 2-1-1, lost to the Avalanche, lost to the Kraken in overtime. Well, actually, they couldn't lose to the Kraken in overtime. They are the Kraken. But they beat the Islanders in a shootout and beat the Canucks. Calgary 6-8-3 on the season for 15 points. They went 2-0-1 this past week. They beat the Canadiens and Canucks, lost to the Islanders in a shootout. Edmonton is still in seventh place in the Pacific, 5-10-1 for 11 points. They went 2-1 this past week. They won their first two games under their new head coach, Chris Knobloch, lost their last game against Tampa Bay, but they had wins over the Islanders and the Kraken. And San Jose still in last place, struggling. They haven't even hit the 10-point mark yet. 3-13-1, 7 points for the Sharks. They went 1-1 this past week. They lost to the Panthers and beat the Blues. So again, the Kings still in third place where they've been most of the season in the Pacific, but gaining a little ground on Vancouver and Las Vegas. Did want to give you a rain report. Ontario went 1-0-1. In their last two games since we last gave you a rain report. They took on the top team in the AHL, the Calgary Wranglers, and did pretty well. Now, they lost Friday in a shootout 5-4. Andre Lee, in his season debut back from injury, had 2 goals. Akil Thomas and Alex Turcotte goals as well. Turcotte, the only Reign player who had a multiple-point night. He had an assist as well. David Rittich took the loss in net, allowing 4 goals on 20 shots and allowed 1 shooter to score in the shootout. The Reign did not have a shooter score in the shootout, and so they lose that one. Sunday, Eric Portillo, 19 saves to record his first professional shutout as the Reign blank the Wranglers 4-0. Samuel Fagemo, 2 goals. Brant Clark had a goal and an assist, and Alex Turcotte, 2 more assists in this one, as Ontario now 8-4-1 on the season, having a pretty good year so far, and good season so far from Brant Clark and Alex Turcotte and others. So that is very encouraging to see. Those are 2 guys that have a spotlight on them, and we could see with the LA Kings at some point this season. So good to see them doing well in the AHL. As for the Reign coming up this week, they've got 3 games, Tuesday at Coachella Valley, and then Friday and Saturday at San Jose. Before we close it out, I did want to say it was awesome to meet up with so many great everydayers at the Blues game Saturday night. Two people, Vin and Robert, just happened to see me and stopped me to say hello, which was very cool. Also got to meet up with Jeff, who was Vin's friend, who he's turned on to the show and become an everydayer. Appreciate when everydayers get their friends to be everydayers. Also got to meet up as well with Anthony and his little brother and Dave as well. So great to meet all you guys. It was a fun night against the Blues on Saturday night, not only on the ice, seeing the Kings get a big win, but also to meet up with some great listeners and viewers of Locked On LA Kings as well. Always appreciate meeting up with fans of the show. And I'm planning on being in Anaheim for the Kings-Ducks game on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. And then on Saturday, the Kings host the Canadians in an afternoon game, a 1:00 game. And I'm planning on being at that one as well. So if any of you everydayers are going to be in Anaheim on Friday or at crypto.com arena on Saturday afternoon and want to reach out and say hi, I'd love to meet up with you guys. Just reach out on social media, or you can send an email. The email address, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. And for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, we are coming up tomorrow, obviously going to have a recap of the Kings-Coyotes game, a rare Monday game for the LA Kings. They do have some coming up in 2024, but this is the only Monday game of the calendar season in 2023. So we'll recap the game coming up tomorrow, focus on how Phoenix Copley did. Hopefully he has a nice game and the Kings can get a win and keep that road record alive. Rest of the week still to be determined. We'll have a special interview as always. And then on Friday, of course, always have our fan feedback show as well. And yes, planning to have a show on Thanksgiving as well. In between eating turkey and watching some football and whatnot. We would love for you to stay connected with the show by following us on X or Twitter and Instagram. Both are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on Tuesday. And as always, go Kings go.